A child has been born from an embryo frozen in 1994, making it the oldest baby ever. Oh my God, the world's oldest baby has been born from an embryo frozen in 1994. Thaddeus Daniel Pierce is over 30 years old despite being born on July 26, 2025. Bro, do you have a video of this? Oh my God.
The world's oldest ever baby has just been born in the US. Thaddeus Daniel Pierce was created from an embryo frozen more than 30 years ago. According to a report by MIT Technology Review, this modern marvel came from an embryo, a fertilized egg, held in a storage tank since 1994. It was eventually adopted by parents Lindsay and Tim Pierce and then transferred into Lindsay's uterus in November 24. And in July 25, Thaddeus was born. His adopted dad Tim was just a toddler when the embryo was created. And there's another quirk to this story. It all came about because the biological mother and the adopting parent were linked up by a Christian embryo adoption agency. So here's how it happened. According to Technology Review, the baby's biological mother and father went through IVF treatment in the 1990s.
Wow, this is great.
They created 4 healthy embryos, but the mother Linda had just one of them transferred, who became the now 30-year-old sister of Thaddeus. The other 3 were frozen in the hopes of having another baby. But things changed. Linda got divorced, and once she reached the menopause, it was time to reassess. In the end, she opted for embryo adoption, which gave her a say over the parents that would take on the embryo, overseen by an explicitly religious agency. Nightlight Christian Adoptions took on the embryos and placed them with Lindsay and Tim Pierce. They fitted the criteria of a married, Caucasian, Christian couple and went on to have Thaddeus, giving him a biblical name. This is not the first time a baby has been born from decades-old embryos. Other cases have also been taken on by other Christian agencies seeking to reduce the number of embryos held in storage for a very long time, thought to be in the millions, although some on the Christian right argue against IVF altogether. But from the moment Thaddeus was born, he became the new world record holder.
Yeah, this is the world record holder. Baby of 30 years? Can you just imagine that? Oh no, we have another video.
Baby. The Ohio boy was...
Ohio boy?
Doctors are marveling at what's being called the world's oldest baby. The Ohio boy was born from an embryo frozen in 1994, and he was conceived in a lab by a couple using IVF, which was relatively new at the time. His adoptive parents found the embryo through a Christian adoption embryo agency. And so for more on all this, I want to bring in ABC News medical contributor Dr. Alok Patel. And Dr. Patel, happy Friday. Thanks for joining us. But first, this is a record, and it's really kind of remarkable. But what's the reaction in the medical community to this news?
You know, Alex, I know people will see these headlines and think this is sci-fi, this is something of the future, but some of the physicians and scientists I've talked to are like, hey, no, this is what we can do with reproductive science and technology. The fertility doctors I've talked to, the reproductive endocrinologists, see this headline and say, yes, spread awareness that we can keep these embryos frozen for a very long period of time. But if you look at the broader conversation among the healthcare community, this really sits in that Venn diagram of human biology and development, scientific advancement, and ethics and individuality in kind of making these decisions for families. So yes, call it a scientific marvel, appreciate science, and realize that there's a lot of humanity in this story.
Well, and that's a really good point, Doc. But I'm also kind of curious, you know, implanting older embryos, is it more of a risk?
From everything that the data suggests and what I've talked to about the experts here, the only risk or the only higher risk situation really comes at the age of the woman when the embryo was frozen. But if the embryo successfully can be thawed and passes screening, the risk is exactly the same. It could be an embryo that's been frozen for a few months or one that's been frozen for 30 years. Because remember, this baby was born at term and is fully healthy. So that actual freezing process is what matters. And that process has actually advanced advanced over time. After the year 2000, the new method of cryopreservation is even more advanced with a higher success rate when it comes to thawing.
Well, and so with that in mind, are you expecting to see older embryos, become more of a trend with IVF?
In general, we are seeing higher rates of ART, that's assisted reproductive technology, and IVF is one of them. So there is an unknown question about what is going to happen with these potential millions of frozen embryos across the world. But Alex, we see that CDC birth rates are going down. The request for IVF is actually going up. About 2 to 3% of U.S. births are born from ART, and that's higher in some states, and it's unfortunately lower in other states as well, where people may want to seek this technology, but may not be able to because of access, healthcare policy in that state, or insurance coverage.
Well, and lastly, I mean, obviously, something like this grabs headlines and it's fun to talk about, but are there ethical questions here?
That's exactly right. So there are ethical questions, and these are questions that we should be asking and making sure that people are on the same page with, because it affects state-by-state policy. One of the biggest questions is, what is the future of frozen embryos that may not be put up for adoption? What is the ethical consideration when it comes to research, and who actually owns, I may say that, when it comes to embryos? So we have to have these conversations while we are talking about advancements in science and celebrating new births.
Wow, this is great. Now I'm just imagining if an embryo frozen can be there, live for 30 years when it has no problem, and can bring up a bouncing baby, the world oldest baby, meaning it can go up to 100 years, even more to 200 years. Bro, we are yet to see that. Those who will be around 100, 200 years to come, they will be there to witness that there was a baby who was frozen, an embryo which was frozen 200 years back, now is being born. Someone will be born, now that will be the world oldest baby. 200 years baby born. Oh, Jesus Christ, bro, this is a miracle? Is it a miracle? It's science. And this is where we are. And everyone is just excited to see this great news, bro. This is a great news to everybody, to everyone outside there, bro. Just look what they say. Just say happy family. I'm just happy for you, yeah? Thank you so much, bro. Thank God this happened. And this is what we call the United States of America, bro. Bro, there's another video. Let's watch this one, I say.
Daniel Pierce, born in... Meet Thaddeus Daniel Pierce, born in Ohio last week, but created back in 1994. His embryo frozen when The Lion King was in cinema. Talk about the circle of life.
A Lion King when he was in the cinema. And the embryo was frozen in 1994.
Baby with a direct link to the previous millennium throws up ethical and legal questions.
I was a little bit shocked. I think it's a lot of things to handle for that child that's being born now.
An American couple turned to IVF in the early 90s, producing 4 embryos. One became their daughter, now 30, and with her own child. The remaining 3 embryos were frozen, but the couple divorced, the mother eventually donating them. Thaddeus came from one of those embryos.
Families come in all shapes and forms, but I do think we need to consider what that child's experience is as they grow up and know that they have a full sibling who is 30 years older than them.
Back then, Donald Trump was a newlywed with second wife Marla Maples and a 4th-time dad to Tiffany.
Back then, our freezing process wasn't that good, but people did still get pregnant from frozen embryos.
The story of Thaddeus, meaning courageous heart in Aramaic, is almost impossible to replicate in Australia, where storage limits of 10 to 15 years apply, and we have tougher donation rules.
It's not language we use in Australia. We do talk about embryo donation, but we do not talk about embryo adoption. We don't adopt embryos or gametes in Australia.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Great. It's news, really. It's news everywhere, and everyone just asking questions, and this has happened. This has just happened. This is where we've come. This is where we are now. Bro, now question is, will he survive to how many years? All right? Now, the question is, now we need to watch and see. If the embryo frozen has spent 30 years, And now the baby is bouncing very happy and healthy. Then let's wait and see how he is going to live. That will tell, and that will give more discoveries about frozen embryos. That must be a key point where we must put all our focus, how he is going to grow. All those challenges to come in there, we must ask ourselves, are they answers out of too much time? All these 30 years when the embryo was frozen, this is why all these problems are coming. If there are any to come, that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm saying. And if nothing comes out, bro, this will be great news. Worthy.